We're gonna make homemade orecchiette, right, which is the most common pasta shape. You find it all over Puglia, Italy. They're called little ears. We're gonna use 400 grams of the Caputo semola flour and like 180, 200 grams of the water. So let's get 400 grams of the flour. You know, like I said, like 180 to 200 grams of the water, room temperature water. You don't have to go crazy about measuring this stuff. In Italy, they're not measuring stuff, they're going by feel, right? So if it's a dry dough, when I start to bring the water and the flour together and incorporate, I'm just gonna add more water. What you don't wanna do is drench it with too much water to begin with, then you're not gonna be able to get the texture that you want. So we're gonna add the water slowly, and if we need more, we're gonna add more water. All right, now we're gonna use the well method. You don't need to do this. It looks better for the fans out there, right? So we're gonna create a little hole in the middle of our flour and make sure the sides are tall enough that your water doesn't escape. This is the same thing we do when we make an egg dough, right? But in the South, you're finding typically with the homemade pastas there is the semolina flour or the 00 flour and water. And the egg doughs are reserved for the North, which are always the richer states in history when Italy was a bunch of separate city-states, right? So we're gonna add the water into our well. We'll start with that much. And we're gonna use our fork to start incorporating it. So right away, just going by feel, I can tell that we need to add more water. We'll do so now. It totally starts out as a shaggy mess and you think that it's gonna be a total failure, but with time, like all good things in life, it takes a little bit of time and hard work and it's gonna come together into a nice dough ball. It'll start to come together in another minute or two and then we'll shape it into a ball and start rolling it out. Just folding the dough onto itself right now. See, it's starting to take shape a little bit more. You get these little fragments, just dump them into the dough and shape it over itself. You can tell I got the texture I want. It's not too dry, it's not too wet. It feels perfect right now. That was just a couple minutes to get it to this point. So you could have homemade pasta dough in as little as a few minutes. So we're almost at that point where we're gonna wrap it with some saran wrap, or if you don't have any, just cover it with a dry towel in a warm place and let it rest for 10 minutes. So even like back in the day when they didn't have yeast, you just use flour and water, and with time, it's gonna be a natural fermentation process that starts. My family's from Bari, so it was such a trip to visit Arcobasso, or La Strada delle Orecchiette, which literally translates to the street of orecchiette, a narrow little block teeming with real-life pasta grannies, shaping and selling these little ears, while wearing their full-length muumuus. It reminds me so much of my grandma Lena. Here's her holding court in her kitchen, some of my fondest memories.
But that's what Grandpa was, Buffetta, not Barese, Bari. It's the province of Bari or something like that. I don't know. But they were Buffetta, and there's two, you know, it's two different things, two different places. Close, you know what I mean? They're close, but.
And just try and cover it really tightly so no air gets in there. All right, and then just let it rest and let the gluten do its work. After your dough is rested for an hour or so, it's time to unwrap it and start shaping. We're gonna cut it in half just so we have a smaller piece and it's easier to work with. I like to just cover the other dough that you're not working on yet, just so it doesn't dry out, all right? If you don't cover it and it dries out, you'll start to see a crust form on the exterior. You don't want that. Or if that happens, try and maybe just reshape it into a ball again. But just so that doesn't happen, I'm gonna put that one to the side and just cover it with a dish towel for now. All right, now we're gonna cut a piece of our dough and start to roll. All right, now you can make these orecchiette larger, smaller. Probably the smaller you go, maybe the more difficult it is, but until you practice it, it's gonna be difficult either way, so don't get frustrated. You wanna do a slow drag on your board, and then turn it over on your fingertip. And you can see how coarse it is, because we're using the semola flour, all right? And then you have that shape, that concave shape in the back is gonna catch your sauce nice. You'll see here I'm just using some of the semola or semolina flour to lightly dust the shaped pasta so it doesn't stick together prior to cooking. In Puglia, they'll often place the shaped orecchiette on a tray and let it dry naturally under the sun. Here are some pictures of Bella a couple years back, stealing a few years before lunch. Pasta's in her blood. Now we're gonna make our sauce for the orecchiette. We're gonna roast some cherry tomatoes, super simple. Put some whole garlic cloves in there, a little salt, oregano. That's it. Go in the oven for like 25 minutes at 400 degrees. Now I want to get all of our cherry tomatoes and their juices together along with some of that beautiful roasted garlic. I like to keep the skin on the garlic when roasting to prevent burning. I also don't want to use too much garlic in this dish, which can often be the case in Italian-American cooking. We want to let the tomatoes shine. I'm going to use an immersion blender to get it to the right consistency before we cook and meld it with our homemade pasta. Now Bella's favorite part, the immersion blender. Whoa.
Smells good.
Good, smell it, babe. Smell it. Next, we're going to heat our pan and add our cherry tomato sauce. That's how you know when the pan is hot. You could add butter here to further enrich the dish, but it doesn't need it. As you can see here, we think Bella is going to approve of this one. I thought you don't like tomatoes.
I like juice to it.
Oh, okay. Dried and fresh pasta are very different, especially when it comes to the cook time. Fresh pasta is high moisture, so it's going to cook in just a couple of minutes. The rule of thumb is when it rises, remove it and toss it right in your saucepan, along with some of that magical starchy pasta water. Pro tip, the less water you use when cooking the pasta, the starchier the water will be. Now it's time for some Parmigiana, clearly Bella's favorite. Oh, Bella, we have guests over. You can't do that. What are you doing? Yeah, and you already ate this too. This was supposed to, I was gonna have you break it apart for the video, make it look pretty, and you took a bite out of the mozzarella. It's good, right? We also added some fresh buffalo mozzarella and finally topped it off with some extra virgin olive oil. Tell everybody how it is. How did we do? Is it good?
You don't want to look at me.
You don't want to be looked at today? Very good.